Today we are celebrating the start of our the third edition of the Resynthesising the Traditional lab, the lab that me and Thaisa Replansky are co-curating with the help of Jan Rolf, who is here somewhere, I can't see. Janli, here, okay. And different editions were also co-curated with some colleagues from other places, our Kazakhstani colleagues, and so on. So yeah, the lab itself is dedicated to how musicians and sonic artists and at a certain point researchers approach the idea of tradition in a more, let's say, from a critical angle. I'm kind of a hater of the word critical because it's been overused over the last 100 years at least. But nevertheless, so the idea is that we apply the principles of what is called, again, hashtag artistic research, which means that we invite people from actually from all over the world. It's an open call twice a year, who use the different artistic means, whether it is working with their instruments or instrument builders, or working with the oral tradition and how it is, the way it is works, or working with archives, or working with soundscapes that are associated to a certain, let's say, geography or traditional geography. And in order to just maybe ask the important questions that we are all aiming for: who creates traditions, why they're created, and at the one hand, right? So how something which just appeared in the world as a labor of people's culture, why did it appear there at the first place, right? So why are the songs here? So what they were used for? What was their role and function in the society? At the one hand, and at the second hand, we are at the other hand. Sorry, English capital Great Britain. I'm really not good in English. So at the other hand is just like how trying to understand how people in power, those in power, the classic power triad of people who were economic power, the power of coercion, of force, and ideology, how people use these traditions that were dear to someone's heart, if you know what I mean, to foster, all the ugly things we have in the world, starting from whatever, you know. Let's not name them. Anyway, so the way it works is that we usually invite from 6 to 8 participants. While the open call, this year open call was just crazy. We had like 400 applications from everywhere. And through the very painful process of like trial and error, mostly just throwing the dice and see how it sticks, we selected 7 wonderful participants from different places. 2 of them, unfortunately, due to various circumstances, are not able to participate, and not able to join us here. We have Saba Alizadeh, who's got a loss of a family member in Iran, so he had to be postponed. And we had Bint Mbare from Palestinian, who is her current passport is not easy to just get a Schengen visa, so unfortunately we learned really lately that she won't have time enough to join to us. Anyway, this is, we have 5 people left, survived the bureaucratic onslaught. And the first part, we already had presentations from Dorothy Carlas and from Ivo Škedra. Thank you so much, it was very beautiful. And now is the second part, where we'll hear 3, we can call them parts of the performances or works in progress. So this year, and actually last year already, we decided to change the structure a little bit, because our residency lab, whatever we call it, is a process-based, not the result-based, so it's stupid for us. We thought to ask them to present something they did over the course of just 1 week, so it just doesn't work like this. And then we asked, okay, so when you come, we will have this short preview, work in progress, sneak peek into the work of the lab, the way it works, just small performances. They're all around 15 minutes. And after the performances, we will have also the roundtables with all the participants of the second part. So if you have any questions regarding anything that you will hear and see, please, yeah, you'll have an opportunity to pose these questions. So without further ado, sorry, I'm really into yapping, so I can go on forever. Anyway. First, you will hear the performance of fantastic artist and Maarja Nuut from Estonia, who is working with tradition from a really interesting angle, being also a trained musicologist, ethnomusicologist, and a very interesting computer electronic musician. So it's always interesting how it actually works, how these things do together. Then after we will be welcoming on stage Varoujan Chetirian, Varoujan from a Swiss-Armenian artist and curator who is working with, you'll tell it about it later. Yeah, finding some objects here and there in diaspora and working with resonances, both literally with the metal resonance of metallic plates and metaphorically with how things resonate between different cultures and identities. And the closing performance for tonight, last but not the least, we will be listening to Marina Tantanozi. Marina is a artist, flutist, originally from Greece, now based in Switzerland, in Basel. Marina is fantastic, like all of the participants that we have. Coming from two different fields, from fields of academic music, having a classically trained flute player, and from the field of improvisation, from free improvisation, working with many people that I will don't want to name drop now. She's now trying to kind of marry all these concepts with the idea of how the traditional Aegean, Ionian, Greek song can be incorporated into these very, very different fields. Now we welcome on stage Maarja Nuut. Thank you.
This is the sound of a very hot Estonian summer day. It's the sound of an unusually tall and old linden tree when it was blossoming, and all the insects, all different bees were there out for this sweet juice. Under that tree, long time ago, so long time ago that the stones were still soft and the time had a different meaning. There was a young woman singing, and people found beauty and joy in it. But she was singing through sorrow. And her tears fell from her eyes, through her heart and the knees and the toes to the ground. And then all the animals in the village had something to drink from. Thank you.
Okay, wow. This was really, I now done, it's really tough now to continue after these three fantastic performances. So maybe just, can we switch places so I kind of look at all of you, you know? Of course. Otherwise I'm just like a spinning wheel. So this stool is very uncomfortable. Anyway, thank you first of all. It was wonderful performances. I think, yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. What I wanted to ask first, I have two stupid questions, and one curatorial. Which should we start from? Stupid. Okay, stupid questions first. So I think this is for all of you. So we call the lab Resynthesising the Traditional, and from what I know about you and from what we see, it's you have a very different approach to tradition, or what is the tradition. I'll tell you a little bit about what's happening, so in order to present that to the participants. So Maarja is classically trained ethnomusicologist, as far.
And so boring.
Very boring, yes. I'm told it's stupid questions. It was your choice. Come on.
Yeah.
Who decided at a certain point just to find her way through how, what are the different musical contexts in which this song, the runa song, the Baltic, Finno-Ugric runa song can exist, right? And so this is yeah, and then these different contexts, different instruments, so how they are. So Marina is also classically, academically trained flutist, and also
musicologist.
And musicologist, yeah. I was about to say that. I did my homework. So. And originally from Thessaloniki, now based in Basel in Switzerland. And for Marina, I think it's always, we discussed it as well, it's hard to be both like an artist and a curator, because you're curating a lot of festivals and different concerts. So it's like always a balance, right? To find the way, but also what I think that your music is very like communal. In a way of just bringing people together, and in free improvisation as a genre, it's always very common to play with people, right? So the solo thing is less common than playing like as a trio or as a quartet, and so on. I mean, it happens, both of them. And so for Varoujan, it's just a long presentation. Sorry, for Varoujan, as I told you before. Swiss Armenian musician, sound artist, and curator. I think what for me is interesting in your approach is the way how you think of what tradition can be in the future. So the futuristic approach. So all the things that, for example, this beautiful story that I will ask to tell you a little bit later. This beautiful story about all these artifacts, or rather architectural buildings that you found there and that you work through. So, but yeah, since for me anyway, that you have all different approaches, but they are also very similar. So what for me is similar is that you refer to tradition not as like object in the field, which is very common, I think, for how people usually interpret it, right? So the field itself is not important. There is object, you can weigh it, you can look at it from different angles, and then it's fixed object. Then you can include it in your music, right? And then for you, for all of your practices, for me, what is really resonating is that you don't care about the object itself, you care about the field. So, Maarja, you create all the musical field around the runa song, right? So, Marina, for you, what the important is sonically how it can be presented. So, all the resonances and things. And for you, Varoujan, the field of research as well, right? So, the way it works. So, it was a very long question, both stupid and curatorial. The thing is that could you share a little bit of, like in general, if you agree with me with this approach, and what is your personal approach to how you work? Just the way you work with it, the way you think, okay, I got to work with it right now. So what is the algorithm? What are the steps? We can maybe, yeah, if anyone wants to start.
It's a big question. Yes. So, oh my God. I've gone through, very different disciplines in my life connected to music, because I think from one hand I'm just generally really interested in sound and texture and different ways of kind of creating landscapes. So when I talk about landscape, it can be, you mentioned field. And so there are fields that are around us and there are fields that are inside us. So this is probably to do also with my inner synesthesia thing, that since I'm a small kid, when I hear something, then there's constantly this like different landscapes that I'm moving through. It's kind of like a thing that you see at the same time when you play music. And yeah, I mean, going through different ways of different techniques, I would say. I think before it was an interesting question here, this polarization between academic Western classical music and then like traditional music, which is has been considered as something more primitive. And I mean, why also a lot of that music might sound primitive when we go to archives is the way how things were actually noted down or recorded, because they were done by people who came from the academic world and they just didn't have the ears actually to hear what's going on there. So I would just say that for different kinds of music, there are different techniques. So I don't mean a word technique here as like good or bad. There are different tools to express yourself or certain things in different ways. And that's why I've moved through these elements, because I'm kind of, I think, constantly searching for new ways to like create the landscape. And when you mention Runo's song, then what's interesting about these old songs, the way how the world is constantly created there. Every time you start singing, you are creating a field also. So I think there are many parallels. But today I showed just a small section of my work. I'm also super obsessed with rhythms and like rhythmical music, and I worked with dance. So I guess one thing also, I mean, generally speaking, I think why many years back, why I was so much drawn to the sounds that I found from Estonian archives, because there were so many more kind of colors and shades to compare to what I heard around myself at that time. And I think working with that kind of music, either we talk about scales or the timbres or the rhythmical use. Like, for example, a good example is that when we talk about dance music, then traditional dance music, we are used to thinking like fixed metrum, you know, like 4x4 or like a fixed things. But the dance music actually, it's constantly playing around. It's very polymetric in a way. So I think working with that kind of music, I understood that there are so many more ways that you can constantly play around with timbres, textures, scales, and rhythms. So when you are far away, you just hear the same melody constantly repeating. But then if you open your ears and you get used to it, then you see that there are like so many little details just in the phrasing and in accentuating and like all these things. So I think that's what really kind of captivated me and still captivates. And now whatever I use, if I use a synthesizer or I also play violin or I use effects or whatever, I think I'm constantly looking for these little details. So even if I play on a rave, you know, like really for dance, I'm still very much influenced, I think, looking for constantly changing with little details with different metrums. So I think that's my approach. I don't know if I actually answered anything.
Just wanted to tell you, every of you about your approach. So
you repeat the question. Oh, it was too long. Please don't.
What is your approach? What is your approach to tradition, and why do you think you exist in the framework of the lab?
Yeah. So for me, it was actually. I will go not too much back, but I'm playing the bass flute since a few years, and I'm improvising. And after some point, I felt like, what else can I do with this instrument? It's like I'm just repeating myself. So then I started using the voice slowly and carefully and with a lot of insecurity. And I realized at some point that I really love the traditional Greek songs. And how can there be a way to incorporate something that is very close to my heart and that I feel like really speaks to me, and it's not a nice idea that comes from outside. It comes really from the heart. How can I try to incorporate that? Of course, it took a lot of time to find a way, and I'm still looking for it. Actually, I don't think that this is finished at all. Yeah, and then I found some songs that I really liked, and I started experimenting with them, decomposing the phonetics of the song. This didn't really work for me. Then I thought, but I really like the melody. How can I play the melody but not stop playing the flute? And trying to create these different layers. Yeah, it's still in the process. That was my trip until now.
Thank you.
Cool. So then, for me, I believe I somehow have a different approach. I think when we speak about tradition, one of the things that really comes out are archives, and how do we get what are the mediums we have to actually listen to, sometimes discover traditions that are not alive anymore, right? So we need a medium to get them. And so this medium has a color, and a bit as old images or old movies has a certain textures. Obviously, there is something very appealing sometimes in the format of traditions. I think for me, I try to get this subject from a different angle. What you heard are basically melodies and harmonies based on the resonances of metal plates. So the question there, the starting question was, frequencies are infinite. So the physical reality inside an octave is just infinite, but we have certain limitations of what we can distinguish between two notes. And then the question is, why certain cultures organize the frequency in a certain way and other in a different way? And then obviously this opens a huge question. I think interesting approach to that is that certain cultures have a landscape, a field, so we start from there, which have certain materials. Let it be wood, bamboo, or mountains with copper and metal, or stones. And these materials actually already embed resonances. And so through these resonances, then come the scales. That's not my theory. Some very wise people write about this. But I got inspired by these ideas. And so I thought, okay, how to create music that is actually not directly taking structures, harmonical structures from a tradition, but actually from the material. And then something I thought is actually in the structures of the songs, there were a lot of similarities between the three of us. So in my piece, it's just my voice and metal. That's the two things there is. And we all had a song with duophony somehow. A bourdon, which is very traditional kind of way of composing. So for my side, it's coming from the Armenian duduk songs. One bourdon, one stable note, and above. Exactly. So there again, kind of a, let's say, modern, I don't know if it's modern, but I think that's a bad word. But metallic resonances with traditional structures, let's say, or something like this.
Thank you so much. quick question, but very tricky. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the gatekeeping in terms of how the culture, what is called or what is tagged as traditional, is usually being kept behind the closed gate. In different contexts, different people control the access to these gates, right? But in general, it's more like this. So I'm personally, like every couple of months, I get people jumping in my DMs saying that what I do is a disgrace and that I should not do this, which is because sacred instruments, stuff like that. But yeah, so what I wanted to ask, where is the trick? The trick is that you're all coming from different, let's say, circumstances at the current point where you're making music. So you're literally living in the forest in Estonia, and so you're like at the very heart of the Runa song as well, the tradition, the land where it was born, right? So then your approach, I kind of feel it in your approach to music. So you just throw in the pot whatever you feel like works for you or not. You're talking the story, so you're very free. You feel really like liberal in a good way in terms of how you operate with it, right? So as my friend says, just my friend from Bashkortostan is like, yeah, I'm Bashkort. Every art I do is the traditional art, traditional Bashkort art. And so we have a different approach with Marina, because Marina being in Basel, which is an extremely international city, like a lot of different kind of, village, city, not city, villages. Very, very international village with all different, whatever tradition, different languages, people, whatever, speak different languages and stuff. And then you also mentioned, right, so that you were hesitating a lot, like if you should include the song. And then it's something like, so also what I feel, so like, because I'm also living in the village, the same. And and I also feel like, what I'm doing here in Europe, like what I'm in the West, which is very, very attached from where I come from. So do I even have a right, to work with it? So this is very different from like Maarja approach, who's like, I don't care. I just, this is my thing that I will do just whatever I want and it will sound great. So then you have kind of, I'm just wondering if it's you, maybe I'm just speculating, right? And then you, as a person who, most of your life spent in Geneva while being Armenian, while knowing everything about culture, history, speaking the language, like then coming, you remember we had this conversation when we were coming to Armenia, and still they consider you a foreigner, and for them it's weird that you look like Armenian, that you speak like in their language, that you know everything about them. So and then you have also like a more detached approach, so the most detached approach out of three, right? So not even incorporating the whole thing. So quickly, the question. Why are you laughing? It's so hard to combine all three perspectives together. You can try it by your own. Don't judge me. Just doing my best. So the question is, like, do you feel certain gatekeeping? If yes, how did it influence your practice, like your personal musical practice?
So if you listen to my album 10 years ago, it sounds very different from what you heard today. I mean, according to some people, I think it's still me. But when I was really working with traditional music, and then I started like looping my violin and singing, and it was much more contained and nice, I think. And then I lived in a city, and actually when I moved to the countryside some years ago, that's when I took out the modular, and for 1 year I just made very weird noises only. And also I was part of like this folk music community in Estonia, and I just say I started to feel it was very kind of suffocating to me. So, and I started to make other weird things, and I was actually really pushing myself out from it. So when you say that you feel that I just throw whatever in the pot, it's because I just told everyone that I don't make this music, I don't make this music, I tried to just go further away, and I said, I make my music. And now when I say this, I can do whatever I want. So the liberation basically comes from there. But it's a very complex and interesting question, because there are these different trends and different aesthetics which start to rule. Like in Estonia, there was a huge folk music revival, has been going on for 15 years. And folk music has really like pushed itself into mainstream pop music, or when it's the duduk techno or whatever, all these different sides. And so, yeah, I mean, I just kind of like went out and just started from scratch in a way. And I think that's like, there is a lot of gatekeeping, I think. And also what I really love about this lab, that, I mean, yeah, the questions that are asked here are the questions that I've been asking. And I've been wishing to meet people who would ask the same questions. So I think it's really important to just think through again and again and again and look from different angles, all these things. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, in the last maybe 15 years, also in Greece or maybe more, there is a big revival of traditional music, in a sense that people, like very young people, go back to it and try to redo it and distort it, and there is metal folk bands and so on, which is lovely. So this is one thing that is happening in Greece at the moment, and maybe this just gave me a little bit of a better like conscience of or a bit more ease in doing what I'm trying to do. I try though not to think about gatekeeping, because I have no answers about that. I don't know who defines what is traditional, when it becomes traditional, and when it's, you know, how many years doesn't have to pass so that something is. I mean, this song that I was singing today, it's a really old song, and it has to do with the social context of living on an island, and then the women were staying on the island, and the men had to work on the boats and sail for months and for years. And it's about this love that is, one is away and one is back and waiting. It's very painful, but it's something that had to do with a very special social context. And on another level, maybe because I am a foreigner where I live, and I have been away from my country for 16 years, and it's really painful sometimes. I think it's also in my process of thinking about identity, and we were talking about this yesterday, like who you are in your language and how your identity changes if you speak another language and then another language. And which parts of yourself do you have to leave behind, or you cannot really represent all the time? I think that, I don't know if now I'm answering the question, but this is really, I think, like on an emotional level, it's also a way for me to bring the pieces close, you know, and not to leave things behind somehow. And I try not to think about it too much, actually, of if it's right or wrong. I just don't want it to be exotic, because it's very often the case, like in the country where I live now, in Switzerland, for example, that you see another music from another culture, and it's like samba, I don't know. And this is what I want to avoid in a way. I don't know if I'm avoiding it. Maybe not, maybe yes, I don't know. I have no answer for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's kind of resonate with what you were saying. Like Armenians have been kind of a diasporic, in a diasporic situation since long. So there was the Armenian genocide committed by the Ottomans in 1915s, but even before that, like Armenians, like Lebanese people or Jewish people, they're very old, kind of trade or cosmopolite people. So I guess from an Armenian diasporic family, we always had this notion of you're a minority in a country, but you bring your homeland through culture, through books, through music, like you're, because we're not living in the soil of our ancestors, so we need to carry something with us that constitutes memory, tradition. So there is this kind of pattern of, and for me, I grew up like this, like, I don't know, listening to Komitas and feeling that this is a musical, ethereal, or emotional homeland somehow. So from that perspective, what I see a lot, coming back to exoticization, and a lot of the Armenian diasporic people, especially in Geneva, they sometimes overdo the tradition. Like they want to be even more Armenian than the Armenians in Armenia, which is understandable, and it's a pattern that replicates a lot. Migrants that really feel that they're kind of need for the cultural survival, they really need to grasp. And I think for me that was definitely a prison. And I think instead of like following tradition, I'm more interested into resynthesizing is an interesting pick of word, but like I think the ones that see tradition as a fixed object are the same one that have political agendas today to reuse tradition for mostly right-wing or nationalistic or purposes. So I don't want to be in that framework for sure.
Thank you so much. Yeah, interesting choice of words. That's true. Should we start with the lecture about the? No, very quick, like blitz questions for every of you before we go to the audience. Maarja, what does working with the electronic music specifically? What does it give you with modular synthesizer with DAW?
Well, it's just a different kind of field. As you mentioned, it's... I mean, why I love modular is because I'm an instrumentalist and I was trained as a violin player, so I need this tactile feeling, really, when I play something. So this is...
Because you're a cellist, right?
Violinist,
yeah.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So... Yeah, I've played instrument, and if I'm just behind the computer or I don't get this contact, I feel a bit detached. So it's like just this need of like playing an instrument. And also what I really love about modular is that it's pretty moody, and I can be moody also, and we have like a dialogue of different moods. Yes, I like this kind of. I improvise actually quite a lot, and I love that you don't always know how it responds, and it's a very flexible thing. So it's with traditional music. So if there's a song, in some ways it's like kind of something very fixed. But I really have this need to feel freedom and. Inside this, so playing with small details, and I think I've really found like an instrument that I love. But looking for different sounds. I think that's like the quest, that if you manage to do something that you kind of like a combination. We don't really create anything new. It's a matter of combinations always, I think. And when you create something that you find a new color, I mean, that's like just like forever quest to me. So who knows what I will be doing in a year. It usually shifts pretty fast.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Marina, for you, stupid question, but sorry. What I particularly like in how you play is that when you start singing into the flute, and then while changing the notes, so the flute resonates as well. I mean, in different stuff, and sometimes it starts like dissonating, which also creates a lot of like timbre, a lot of body. So my question is that is it an intentional choice, these, and also the distortion pedal, which brings a lot of like noise and amplitude? And if it is an intentional choice, like what does it give you, both like musically and maybe conceptually, or yeah?
I have no idea. Yes, it is intentional. I think it's just fun. I don't know. I really don't know how to answer this question.
Yeah, I just really like that, because I mean, in the technique. So I also play flutes, and then we also have the same technique as like when you like sing in the flute, and it's so. And I was just like, first time I saw you perform, I was like, oh.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting with the voice. I think also it comes from a place where I'm a classical. I was classically trained, and I always admired in improvisation the string instruments because they can do 2-3 notes a chord, you know, and I was trying to find a way to reproduce stuff like that, to make it more, to expand it more than having just one line. And that's why also the effects, because it helps me in this direction. Yeah, I don't know what it gives, but it's a very interesting area to discover, because if you change the voice like half no, 1/4 of a tone, it what's the name of this? Yeah, it oscillates in a different way. Then you go a little higher, then it becomes faster, and so on. So you can really play a lot with these changes.
It's like physical modeling, but you have it in your hand and in your voice. It's so fun. Okay, thank you. And Varoujan, for you, I just wanted to ask if you could share with us the story of your field research on the telescope you found in the mountains, and more importantly, like, what do you think out of this story? How does the tradition that we have in the past connects with us in the present, and is it helping us to build the future? Because yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it was a pleasure. So in Armenia, in the mountains, like 40 minutes from the capital, there still is a space center, which was built during the Soviet Empire. So Armenia was part of the Soviet Union. In the 70s, it was built, and it was huge, pretty advanced space center with a telescope, multiple buildings, unfinished solar energy, huge dish, anechoic chamber, huge thing. And after the fall of the Soviet Union, the state didn't have the money to sustain the place, so it just was. Actually, the reality is that everyone took all the copper and the gold and all the things that you could sell. That's the first step. And then second step, when only the skeleton of the place and the computers remains, the villagers around started to reuse the space for their cattle, to bring the cows in the winter. So you have these surrealistic scenes visiting the space where you enter an anechoic chamber with cow shit inside and everything is destroyed. So it's very surreal. And for me, this was an important starting point, because revealing my own kind of identity and cultural background. So being there, I felt like I was in a post-apocalyptic scenario from a movie where this telescope was built by a previous civilization, and now this civilization is lost, and we're back to rural, tribal technologies, and milking the cows, and we don't know how to make it work. Like it's gone. This was the past, and this obviously echoes our own prediction of our future, which is one with climate change and political turmoil and chaos and wars and genocides, and so it was like being in this prediction. And at the same time, when I continued the research, talking with the villagers, talking with people that actually were building the telescope themselves with their hands as working class people or scientists, for them this apocalypse or the catastrophe was already past. Like the thing is gone. Now they're in the aftermath. It's like, for us it's pre-apocalypse, and for them it was already happening. Now is the time of democratization, economical growth in Armenia, trying to build peace with the neighbor that is not easy. But the vision on why is this place interesting for me was not at all matching their own vision of the space. So this led me to realize that the notion of the future is also geolocalized. Like, depending on where we are, the future resonates in a different way. And that's actually where I started my metal experiments also. I plugged myself with transducers on the structure of the telescope and started to sync inside and put archives, and that's how the voice and the metal kind of started.
Thank you so much. It's also interesting about the future and just the way trauma builds. I mean, Dina Bintenberg is not here with us, but we had a lot of discussions on this way that for her, like, what is important is like the agency of Palestinians. So they are not, this agency is not reduced only to like tragedy, only to trauma, because like the history is very rich, and then we found a lot of similarities. So the history is very rich, like occupation and colonization, just one point in the history, right? So there is future, there was past, there's a lot of things going on. So, and you cannot rewrite the future. And I also thought that somehow that all the people we selected, they have kind of, we could all refer to this trauma in the past, right? The Armenian genocide, everything happened with Greece and between Greece and Turkey and still happening. The Soviet occupation of Estonia and so on. But then somehow it's not like the point of trauma merchandise, right? In a way, which is of course I think also important to work with trauma in a way. But then it's also about like rebuilding, right? So and working towards this. Okay, thank you so much. Do you have any questions from the audience? I want you to feel involved, but I really can't stop yapping. Sorry, this is.
It's not a very philosophical or deep question. It's more of a logistical question, and it's for Maarja. I have been trying to find where you play and what events you do, and for the life of me, I cannot. Is there any way to come to a rave where you're playing, or do you have any upcoming events, and do you have a secret WhatsApp group that a person could be part of?
I do have a website, actually. But no, the raves I do only in the deep cellars of Estonian underground. So till
cool.
now, so you come there. I heat you a sauna, feed you some magic soup, and then bring you with me. Okay.
Yeah, hello. Thank you very much for the evening and for your sets. It was really interesting, beautiful. I wanted to ask a few questions actually, and they're kind of connected. I would say the first one about this thing of gatekeeping, and what do you think? I mean, you're working with your, let's say, your tradition in some way, like you're from Estonia, you're from Armenia, you're from like Greece, but what do you think like of working with different traditions? I mean, I don't know if you work with Armenian traditional music or culture. And the next question is, what is traditional today? You know, I mean, like maybe in 200 years. CTM festival performances will be like traditional, you know? So, yeah, it will be interesting to hear from all of you and maybe from Stas as well.
So, good questions. The first one, yeah, it's like it's this a bit like dipping into this whole world music thing that was a big thing, you know. I have worked with other artists. I've done collaboration with a Tuareg musician, for example, from North Africa. It's a very complex thing for me because I myself, my biggest gatekeeper for sure. So, I mean, I was 21 and I lived in India, in New Delhi for 7 months and studied Hindustani classical music. And the time there taught me everything about how to listen. But I never used like musical references from that time because, yes, I don't. It's. I always have. I always have this feeling that what I do, sometimes, I mean, I listen to so many different kinds of music, and sometimes you really like something, and I can listen 2 weeks, like 17 hours a day, this one album, you know, I'm like soaking myself in it. And I really like need to kind of like crack the code. And then maybe 2 months later, I understand that I've created something that's very much influenced by this. And then I'm like, okay, great, but I just put it aside because I feel that it's like a very clear reference that I've, you know, yeah, or just like I feel that it's just a very direct reflection. And then sometimes 2 years passes and I understand that I've created something that's like there's a conceptual influence, but it has like soaked through my DNA and now has my sound to it. So when working with different traditions, I think, yeah, I mean, it has to start with respect, and it's more about, I think it's more, not so much about the style, but more how the people approach to music and sound, because the question exactly, we can talk about like a melody as a thing, but what we should more think and talk about is why and how, I think, or where does it come from. And this approach, very often, you can play with somebody, you have totally different sound, but somehow it comes together because you share some similar approach. So I think that's my thing also, that you try to find a common ground in some other ways. And then you had a question about, what was it?
What is like traditional?
There, I think in nowadays, why it's a tricky question, we have just so many traditions. So there's when we try to narrow it down, yeah, CTM can be, it is a tradition in a way, and it's right what you say. But when we talk about using traditional material or folklore, then also now I think there are really these like subcultures. So for example, there's this Scandinavian sound, how global music or their music is played. It's not about the melodies, it's really how you play, like what kind of technique or tricks do you use. There are this, and it's not so much always what I've noticed connected to that, okay, or there are these ethno camps, young camps where people come together all over the world and learn about each other's culture. And there's a specific sound, how they arrange music, how they play music. So I think it's just, there are so many different circles and cultures in traditional music. So I think it's impossible to, what I find is that when you think of the old stories or the songs, why they were is that they allowed you to sometimes distance yourself from everyday little things, you know, like about myself, or we are just dealing with ourselves all the time, and talk about more, I don't know, more metaphysical things, or how to listen to the environment around you, how to notice things in the nature wherever you live. So I think how I approach is that these old ways of seeing the world also teaches me to be more attentive towards what's happening now around me. And that helps me to be, if I'm more attentive, that also helps me to be just a better person. So I approach also to tradition that it's very much about learning to actually reflect and listen to things around you, and then put that experience into music and share it with others, and then just be more attentive towards everything. Yeah.
I just wanted to add for the first question that I think in a way we're influenced by many traditions, and many times we don't even know that, we don't even notice that. So in a way we are dealing with other traditions, although very often it just might not be recognizable. And my question then would be, does it have to be recognizable in order to say that, okay, I'm doing this work? Maybe you do it and you're influenced and inspired by it, but nobody knows about it, or yeah, I don't know. And about the second question, I think it's a vast subject, but what just came to mind was that for me, like from my point of view, from my heritage, like traditional is something that is very communal, like community-based, and it meant a lot for the community to keep it together through the years and the wars and the, I don't know, the hunger and the winter and whatever. So I like to think about it in this way. Of course, traditional can also be very conservative and so on. Let's not go there now.
Yeah, maybe a just quick word. Yeah, there was this interesting encounter when I was working in the botanical garden in Armenia, and one of the scientists there, she was basically working at classifying and keeping the indigenous seeds of the plants of Armenia. And then the question that was raised there is, what's the limit of time we need to set to consider a plant indigenous? And I think it's interesting to go on this with the plants, because like human, we are so like politicized that it's somehow trickier. But with the plants, it's a different angle. So for them, it was 1,000 years. Before 1,000 years, it's indigenous. After, it's modern, or yeah, it's like haram. So I don't know. From this angle, then tradition could simply be the fact that something is repeated through practices and memories. Like it could be the opposite of innovation somehow, even if it's not completely correct, but in these like broad categories. So in that sense, like techno in Berlin is definitely a tradition, right? And
it's what we call the indigenous Berlin music.
Yeah.
I was so cute.
Exactly.
I think when Thaisa were with your aunt, you remember? And we went to this coffee shop and they were playing like techno, not music for coffee shop. We were like, oh, they respect the Berlin tradition. They're playing indigenous music there. So anyway, I think that there is a certain, thank you for the question, it's a great question, by the way. There's a certain juxtaposition that is created by different relations of power. And my personal approach to this, I'm not a musicologist, I'm not an ethnomusicologist, and never studied music like properly, only in my village, 5 classes of, you play piano and then in Siberia they just beat you on your fingers if you play it incorrectly, so. So my approach is very, let's say, academic, very analytical in a way. So I'm a philologist, now I'm currently a media scholar. So for me, I'm not really interested in how it sounds like or what are the words and so on. For me, what's interesting is function. For me, it's interesting who created this specific thing with using which tools in which specific circumstances. So, and then I think this is one of the things that is being overlooked. I would say that it's been deliberately overlooked by certain forces, again, power, capital, however you call it, colonial power, it doesn't matter at this point. So it is overlooked only because there's a certain story there. There's always a story. So things just don't pop up out of the thin air, Things just don't do this. And then there are so many examples of when people were juxtaposing these things, saying, okay, so this is modern, this is traditional, because it's easy to control what is called traditional, or telling people what is traditional, We are Muslims. We don't, so LGBTQI plus is haram because we're Muslims, it doesn't work like this. But maybe before the 10th century, like Central North Asia, we're not really Muslims. We're like, we're different things and different histories. So it's very easy to control people with using this. And then when you hear one of the, and again, multiple examples. So people say, music is not important. art is not important. My answer to these people, go fuck yourselves. Because whenever you look to the histories of oppression, genocide, whatever, occupation, first they come and seize the politicians, they murder them and put them in jail, or like, you know, leaders, and then they come to the, what is called intelligentsia, right, the cultural workers. Then they will just go and they will, you know, capture the cultural workers because there's certain knowledge of how it's been created. I mean, again, multiple examples. One of them, we have Bulat Khalilov here, the audit recordings labeled Circassian music and beyond. Yeah, so just guys just released an album of music that are like related to the Russian Circassian war. It's just songs that were singing like through generations, traditional, as a memory, as a container for memory, for history, as a lesson to learn for future generations. And of course, I mean, not the Russian authorities, which, because like Circassia has been occupied by Russia since a couple of centuries, were not happy. And then we had repercussions of this. But why? It's just music, you know, it's just tradition, it's not important. So I think there's a fake juxtaposition about something being modern and something being traditional. Why I think it's fake? Because, as you said, we are creating a new tradition every time. CTM, I would say, already traditional, you know. You see people, I mean, you know, you go to band camp, you put like experimental music, it all sounds the same. And then the fucking essay about the world we live in and how horrible it is, you know. This is just the vibe. So for me, like experimenting in music, experimenting with tradition, it's not like, you know, using all these plugins or modulars or whatever and just bring yourself into this cliche of how we do like duduk techno or whatever it is. It's just, first of all, it's asking questions. Like, why is it here at the first place? Why this exact song appeared in these exact circumstances, in this whatever complications? We have, just as a last example. So Tatarstan and Bashkortostan, two autonomous republics, close to Kazakhstan, North Asia, Central North Asia. So cultures are very similar to each other, similar history, neighboring republics, similar languages, really similar languages, like Volga-Tatar language is very similar to Bashkort. Musically, in Tatarstan, accordion, harmonica is extremely popular, like really, really popular. And then people usually associate harmonica with like, traditional music, folk music, and so on. In Bashkortostan, it's really hard to find any recordings of music recorded with harmonica. I'm working with archives dated before, let's say, mid-20th century. So after the Bolsheviks already. And I was like, yeah, why? It doesn't make any sense. Then I realized, well, like working with the archival sources, harmonica, accordion was not really really popular in this region because the first ever manufacturer that was producing harmonicas for Russian Empire was built on the occupied Bashkort land. So there were settlers that came, that killed people, they built the manufacturer there on this land. So then for my people, this instrument was associated with like genocide. That's why they didn't play it. So, and then it's every single piece of equipment, every single whatever note, everything that we use, it belongs to, that's what I call like the field, right? So you cannot just observe the object. To fully understand how the objects function in the field, you need to refocus yourself on the field itself.
Yes.
Amen. Do you have any questions? Please.
Yeah, my question was, what do you think about cultural appropriation and about people who have like mixed origins? And do you in your music use concrete cultural borrowings or maybe quotes from other cultures? I can say from my own example, I was born in Soviet Union, yeah, and I'm of Jewish ethnicity, though I lived 6 years in Palestine, I'm active anti-Zionist and so on. So I lived in Cuba many years, I lived in Brazil, I'm a percussionist, and I create kind of traditional music without my own tradition because I really am an apolid, you know, I'm not accepted in any kind of society that I could say, traditional society that I could say mine, of course. So yeah, listening, I consider myself a person playing ethnical music, but none of the ethnoses I'm using in my creations is my ethnos. And sometimes I do blame myself, even in cultural appropriation. You know, I play Bata music, for instance, like it's Yoruba, Afro-Cuban music, and so on. So yeah, it's a question I want to, like, what's your opinion on that? And do you think is there space for this beyond cosmopolite, like really apolite musicians and creativity in this synthesis between synthetic and traditional organic music? That's my question.
I think if you like making music and it makes you happy, then go ahead. I think that's like the most important thing that we also sometimes forget, that we can always go deeper, we can always go wider and explore more, but in the end, making music is already a value in itself, I think. And I mean, cultural appropriation is a huge subject, but I would say that if you like something, I always advise to find out more about it, and that's it, and have respect. It's very simple.
I agree. No, and for someone like you who has so many different, like, you carry many traditions with you, and maybe you don't have one, but so I think that's a very rich background, actually, and you could see it also this way, and then if it's something that, I don't know if I would be in your position, but for me it's difficult to relate to something, or to bring something in my music that I'm not very close to, because then I feel like it's a bit fake, like, okay, I'm stealing, maybe. Yeah, and then this love makes you want to learn more about it and spend more time with it, and then you incorporate it in a way that makes sense for you. And there is no, I mean, there is a cultural appropriation police, obviously, that will tell you what is, where it starts and where it's safe not to. But in the end, I don't know, I'm not very sure about that.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I mean, imagine a world where you're only allowed to cook the food and eat the food from the nation where you were randomly born in. That would be so sad. But I mean, I think there is obviously some like cliche things that are red flags. For me, the best way to learn is like human connection, and I think if you lived in countries, that's already like. So the things to avoid, for example, I take just gamelan recording from a group I don't even know the history, and I put a kick on top, and I've never met, researched, talked. I have not been introduced, and then I make a lot of money out of this, and that's a kind of red flag, easy scenario. Yeah, but yeah, no, definitely like human. There's so many, and I think there's a lot of resonances between the traditions. That's also something to not overlook. Like there is so much similarities and synergies, obviously also differences, but those differences make more beauty. So yeah, definitely.
I mean, look how nations have moved and migrated all the time. It was also interesting. Many years ago, I was touring in the US, and I was doing a lot of storytelling. And I was telling this old story about 3 sisters who killed their sibling because the youngest sister got more strawberries than them. And after the performance, every time so many people came to me, and somebody was from Poland, somebody from Czechoslovakia, somebody from Germany, and everyone were like, oh, we have this story in our tradition. I mean, it's a very good example that these old songs or stories, they have traveled, and there are like small variations here and there, but I mean, there are also a lot of common things. And I also think that about being kind or respect is that when you hear or see something that you maybe know a bit more, and there's a possibility, we can be kind and just share the information, because there are many things also, I've done many things wrong in my life because I just didn't have any knowledge about it. So if I think it's also the intention, if you don't do it like on purpose in a bad way or unrespectful way, then that's also something to think of.
It always comes to these things, respect, context, but it also has to be not a performative respect. There is this term deference politics, right? We will show respect to the old folks, which is the false respect. I don't know, I just wanted to, unfortunately we are running out of time. I wanted to add with, just to answer maybe with a short story. We have, there is a musician in Almaty in Kazakhstan, Samrat Terjasov. And we had a conversation. So we went to, last year, I think, or 2 years ago when I was visiting Kazakhstan for work, went to his show. He's a fantastic musician. Went to his show, and there were like many people. I mean, of course, obviously many Kazakh people or Central Asian in general. And there were like this really type of people that you, like last few years, you can spot in different places, in cultural places in Almaty. A lot of, they call themselves relocants, like Russian people from Moscow and St. Petersburg, usually IT people come in to live in Almaty, Kazakhstan, because they don't want to, whatever, go to war or whatever. So, and I don't know the percentage, but some of them, they are really trying to fit in a very weird way. So they try to wear like kind of traditional clothes, and these hats, these round hats that are also very like in different North and Central Asian culture. And then so we saw a dude. It's my favorite, like a Russian dude with dreadlocks and with this Central Asian hat, with the Kazakh hat. And I was like, okay, man. Whatever. I mean, I don't know you, so why should I judge? And then I like, then we met with Samrat, and they were like, yeah, this is a beautiful show, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, yeah, what do you think about like these people coming to your show? Like these people wear, and in general, what do you think about these guys wearing hats? He was like, well, at least someone should wear this. Like, we don't want to do it, so maybe this guy at least can wear this tourist crap. And we were like, okay, that's the thing. So, yeah. And also, I would strongly recommend you to find a fantastic artist, a Japanese, Swiss yodeler. It's called Takeo Ishii. He's doing techno yodel, like in Alpine. He's fantastic. He's maybe in his 70s. So he's like techno yodeling in the background of the Swiss mountains. So up and so. Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. I just wanted to once again tell you that on Sunday we'll have some sort of a like wrap up of the lab, like a public wrap up. Please join us. It's going to be more open than today. Everyone will be welcome to share your opinions or what you will hear. We will also have an artist talk / performance lecture from the fantastic Kazakh poet, artist, and curator Anwar Dusinbinov, who will tell us about this project and the context. And yeah, once again, Maarja Nuut, Marina Tantanozi, Varoujan Chetirian. Can I actually call everyone? Taisa Riplansky, the co-curator, and please come to us. Yes, Taisa, this is for you. We have Yara Mekawei. Where is Yara? Yara left already. No? Yes. Then Miłosz, Kedra, Dorothy, everyone. Dorothy is here. Miłosz, they left. Okay. So here we all not in the full scale, but yeah. Thank you so much for visiting. You were Miłosz. Hey.